Hello and welcome to Fit to Box channel. Please like and subscribe and don't forget to jab that notifications bell for all my latest uploads. Today me and Damien have got together a bit off the cuff following on from the weekend's fight between Anthony Yarde and Lyndon Arthur. Okay, hence why the Lions in the camp. Okay, now I wanted to do a video after Yarde lost to Kovalev, but I thought I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because even though he couldn't stop a jab, apart from with his face, in that fight, I did think, well, it is Kovalev, it is a step up in levels for him, and so be kind, and that's what I was. But now we've had this fight at the weekend between Yarde and Lyndon Arthur, who, before the fight, we knew that he could jab. That was the one thing that we knew, that he was a good jabber. Yeah. So I was thinking, obviously, in the camp with Tundi, his trainer, Yarde probably would have been just defending the jab, defending the jab, defending the jab. That obviously was not the case. So the fight went to a split decision, 114 to 115 Arthur, 114 to 115 Arthur, and 111 Arthur to 117 Yarde, which was 5 rounds, which was absolutely no chance that that was the case. No. So, split decision went Arthur's way, and then Yarde basically was saying, robbery.
I understand he feels jilted about what went on. I think the argument that when they interviewed them straight after the fight, he said, well, I pressed the fight, I applied all the pressure. Now, we were obviously communicating and we were watching the fight at the same time. Obviously, we live 15 odd miles apart, but we were I was saying, well, pressure doesn't win fights, punches wins fights. You can't just be in someone's face and say, well, I deserve to win. You may have the argument that if he stood off Arthur, nothing may have happened, because what Arthur was doing was counter-punching. He was on the back foot, but not running backwards, but he was sort of edging backwards, letting Yarde come onto him, and then very, very effective with his jab, keeping Yarde at distance, and so occasionally counter-punching. He didn't throw many right hands. He basically beat Yarde with his jab all night long. And Yarde saying robbery, but that's just maybe today, tomorrow, next week he'll watch the fight and he'll settle down a bit and realise that he just again got beaten by a jab. He just doesn't want to block the jab.
Well, the fight was Saturday night, and he has since watched the fight, as has Tundi, and they've both come out and said they've watched it again and they still believe that it was a robbery. So there's no change in what they're thinking. No. At the end of the day, Lyndon Arthur's jab was just very effective. Yeah. And as you say, he was just moving a little bit. He was actually moving a little bit to his left all the time. Yes. And as well as not being able to stop the jab, Yarde wasn't even cutting the ring down.
No.
Which, two things that should have been said to him during any of the breaks was that. To whether or not he thought he was going to miss the jab by moving his head, that wasn't happening. And obviously, to try and catch up with Arthur, you needed to cut the ring off, and that just didn't happen. And then in your corner, you've got sort of Tundi. Now, to be fair, if you follow Tundi's social media, he's a very positive guy, and I like the positivity. But I think we're getting to the stage now where it's almost like blind positivity.
Yeah.
He needs to be a little bit more subjective, is the word. And in his corner, instead of just saying Lions in the camp, which I understand that is to G up your man, but instructions, nothing technical in terms of loads and loads of different instructions, but very simple stuff, I think, would have won him the fight. Now, Yarde sets up in this sort of Mayweather-esque sort of.
Yeah.
That's how he is.
Sort of Detroit style, you call it.
But the difference between how he's doing
Philly
it,
shell.
The Philly shell is that. So chin down and shoulder protecting the chin and this protecting the face. Yarde is doing this where his hand is there and there and he's just getting punched in the head.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's also come out that Lyndon Arthur had hurt his hand weeks before, his right hand.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't really throwing his right hand. We thought he could have been injured because he wasn't throwing it. It was after about round 10 when Tunde noticed and said, I think he's injured his hand. He hasn't got a right hand. And pretty much straight away, with that knowledge, Yarde went forward and got punched in the face by quite a meaty right hand by Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon Arthur was wearing RDX gloves. And he was wearing the original red and white Hyper KO boots. Yarde was wearing Adidas for both his gloves and his boots. But I do think now we're at the stage where we're getting into delusion.
Yeah. Yeah, there's how many rounds, when we were obviously messaging each other while we were watching the fight, there was at least, was it 2 rounds, maybe more, where we both said gum shield. And he sent his man out. He sent his man out, and he hadn't put his gum shield in. So Yarde's going out there, and it's as a coach and a trainer. I know we're levels below. Well, you think we're levels below at amateur level or whatever, but there's basic things that you wouldn't do as a coach, and as a fighter, you were in my corner. I wouldn't go out there without you putting your gum. I would know that I need that, and I wouldn't walk out there, and you wouldn't let me walk out without me having that in my mouth. Yeah. And I just think sometimes the psychology of, like you said there, this lines in the camp thing, and it's positive and geeing each other up. But there was a little cut scene, probably around 7th or 8th round, where Yarde sat down on his stool, and Yarde himself is sitting there breathing heavy, going, lines in the camp, like trying to gee himself up, and he's like trying to, that belief that he's got incredible talent, he's got incredible strength. As we saw round 12, he rocked Arthur and good right hand and got him going. Yeah. But every man before him hasn't had the punch resistance or the ability to fight back. Yeah. He's now met someone in Lyndon Arthur that's had good punch resistance and can fight back. And we saw it last weekend with Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce. It's the first time really you smacked them and they're still there. And now you need a plan B. And they're not used to thinking about a plan B. And unfortunately, you can't out-jab the guy. He's hitting you. You can't knock him down. So what do you do? And Yarde just seemed out of ideas and just pressed forward. And Lyndon just kept sticking the jab in his face. And Howie and John Lewis got that 117-111, that 5-round margin for Yarde. I don't know what he was watching, because
and that didn't help at all, because obviously Yarde has heard that and thought that was right.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And then when it wasn't, and I felt a little bit sorry for Lyndon Arthur really, because when they was interviewing both of them at the same time, he was quite sort of quiet. He was quite defensive. He didn't go back at Yarde. It was almost we'll have a rematch. But I thought that Yarde should have given him a little bit more praise in terms of what he did. I think he was more going on about the robbery than he was about what didn't happen. And let's be honest, Lyndon Arthur won the fight with a jab, with one hand. He didn't beat Yarde with 2 hands. He beat him with 1 hand because his right hand was injured. Yeah. Even before the fight, his right hand was injured. So he had to jab. Now, I have to say, I do think that Arthur, he seemed a little bit disinterested from about round 6. Now, that might be just his sort of, what's the word? His sort of, just how he is. Yes. It just might be how he is. But I don't know whether or not that's going to help him going forward, because he just seemed disinterested. And I think
I think perhaps a little bit of a theory on that was that if you're fighting and say we're sparring or we're fighting or whatever you're doing, and you're doing something and it's effective and it's working, he may have just got to the point where I don't need to risk anything. I don't need to jump in there and use the right hand or do anything extra, or uppercuts or crosses, or do anything out of the ordinary, because what he was doing, basic boxing 101 with the jab, was effective.
Yeah.
So he knows that Yarde can punch. He knows he's got strength. So why step in and mix it up and try and apply more pressure when that could, in turn, get him in trouble with what Yarde throws back? So perhaps he thought, I've got control of this. Yarde's not trying to steamroll me like that 8th round he had with Kovalev. Perhaps because he thought he's just taking his time and trying to look for the opening. Maybe Lyndon just thought, I'm not going to give him the opening. This is working. We'll just keep jabbing him, and that's it, and go for points.
Yeah, and he had a rough 12th round where Yarde come on strong. It was too little, too late. I mean, in terms of scoring, there's no way it was a robbery. People are arguing that it was a draw. I thought Lyndon Arthur won. He was the champion. I thought Lyndon Arthur won 1-2 rounds. I might be being generous there to Yarde, because
Anthony Yarde didn't do enough to take that title off him.
No. There was lots of posturing as if I've got this. But at some point, there's got to be punches to back up the posturing, and that just didn't happen. Let's just move on to Tunde. And I don't like to criticise a coach. And obviously, they've got a good relationship. They've got a good camp where they enjoy themselves, and there is positivity there. And, and I don't knock Yarde for being loyal to Tunde. But I do think now we've had 2 examples where he had to step up against Kovalev, and Kovalev just jabbed him, and actually, in the end, the final punch, he knocked him out with a jab, or knocked him down with a jab. And that wasn't just a jab out of nowhere. It was a build-up of jab over many, many rounds. Now, Tunde has got this sort of, they don't do much sparring.
No.
Which I think you can tell.
Yeah.
Because in sparring, you have to stop jabs. The times when I've seen them doing the pads, there's 2 types of pads they do. There's a big guy who has like a body protector on, and he has the pads, and he reins in like hooks, and Yarde just does all this and stops the hooks. But the guy, because he's got pads, he's not throwing straight shots, probably because if the edge of a pad hits him, he's going to cut him, which he doesn't want to do. So you've got that type of pads from the big guy, which essentially is not teaching how to stop a jab. And then you've got Tunde's pads, whereby it's sort of like the Roger Mayweather sort of style, but Tunde appears to be doing more work than the boxer.
Yeah.
Which is never a good thing, because...
Yeah, he seems to be throwing the pad onto the fist rather than sort of taking resistance back. He's kind of pitter-patter and pushing the pad onto the gloves.
Yeah, and Yarde's hands are not really moving that much.
He's not extending his arms. No.
There's no extension on the arms because obviously Tunde's hands are coming forward. So I think they need sparring. I think they need more realistic pad work, because whatever looks good on Instagram, I've got techniques where I can do loads and loads of combinations and they look good on Instagram, but I've also got many, many other ways that I do pads. Very simplistic pads, situational pads, and endurance pads. There's lots and lots of ways to do pad work. And he may do that without the cameras on, but I have never, ever seen that.
No. So
I would say at this point, if I was Anthony Yarde looking at my career and how it's going, and and don't get me wrong, he'll dismiss this, because I think they are in that delusional space where they literally believe that they're going to be a world champion and they've just had some bad luck.
Yeah.
But I think we're past that now. Alternatives for me would be keep Tunde on board for the upbeat of the camp and look at somebody like a Shane McGuigan, and Adam Booth, and Ben Davidson. What do you reckon?
He needs some technical ability. I think because they've been successful to this point and they've done so well, the realisation of what's required hasn't hit them. And I thought it would have hit them literally, but it hit them. But the jab hit them. But after the Kovalev fight, maybe they just thought we got unlucky. If they don't readdress this now and realise that Yarde can't defend a quality jab, then there's issues with the coaching, because, as I said before, he's got great ability and great strength, and he's able to mow through people that can't take a punch and don't have the ability to fight back. Now he's met two people that have, and they've both beat him. So that should be ringing alarm bells that he needs sparring, and he needs someone to be throwing a jab. And if he's hang on a second, if he's orthodox, so that hand he's got that kind of shield in front of him. Either that's got to come up and guard his cheek, or this has got to be coming forward to parry the blow. He's got to do something to stop that jab, because that's just open for jabs. And when he tries to come forward and move, if Arthur or whoever else has a longer reach, they're going to beat him to that jab. I think in the times of knowing, I'll talk about confidence briefly, just very, very briefly before we move on. When you trained me for my fight, I got to the point where sparring was becoming not so much a chore, but it was affecting my confidence, because if I had a day where I just didn't click, it wasn't working, and I just couldn't do anything, I very quickly sort of like, I can't be bothered to throw a punch, because when I do throw, I'm missing. And in the last 2-3 weeks, we switched to doing pad work and the head stuff and the body, and my confidence just went through the roof. And then fight night, I was blazing. I'd have fought anybody, and I had a really good fight and won that fight. So there is the issues of that. I know if sparring doesn't go well, it can dent your confidence, because you're thinking, I can't hit the guy and whatever else. But these are levels above my level and beyond, so they shouldn't sort of be suffering with that kind of confidence problem.
But if somebody threw a jab at you, you still knew how to block a jab.
Of course I would, because you taught me how. Because everything started from the jab, from me punching a jab, and my basic guard as a southpaw, and I'm covering up of that kind of microphone and cheek system. I'm going to adjust that, but I'm going to cover my face. So when I'm going to throw the main punch, I'm never going to drop that down and do this. And there were days where I was silly and did that, and used to get your hand up. What are you doing? I'm used to standing there like that and protecting myself.
Yarde's guard starts off with his hand down, so he's relying on his reactions to either get that hand back up or to move out the way, and he's doing neither. He's doing neither.
Well, interestingly enough, Lyndon Arthur's style was the same. His jab hand was also by his waist. It was also low, and he was just flicking. He was flicking it out nice and fast, and he was able to sort of keep his range. And because he had longer reach, he sort of controlled Yarde in that respect.
Lyndon Arthur's his jabbing hand was much too low. He was open to a right hand. The difference between the two boxers was Lyndon Arthur's jab was better than Yarde's jab. Yes. And because Yarde had no defence against that jab, he was just racking the points up. I think he could have put a bit more in terms of, as you say, I think he was a little bit reluctant to sort of go and commit, but he still did enough. And you know, I just can't. Once you're in this mindset, we are in the sort of the realms, not as bad, but obviously with Deontay Wilder, if you get thoroughly beaten, you can learn a lot from a loss. Yeah. You can't learn a lot from a loss if, one, you're claiming it's not a loss, because in your head you can't address any problems, because in your head you've said, no, I didn't lose, I'm not counting it as a loss. So no learns there. Or you're going to come out with every excuse under the sun, and obviously Wilder come out with a lot more excuses than most. But Yarde's coming out with excuses. He's coming out with excuses, and he's trying to blame other people. Ultimately, I think they've got problems. Being a cheerleader and getting somebody up for a fight is one thing. Yeah. Technical ability and doing the right thing, for me, it's just that not ability not to be able to stop a jab really concerns me. There's no way that he's going above European level.
No.
I mean, he'll get title shots, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about the level that he's at. If he was to meet a good solid Italian or French guy with a good jab, he's gonna meet the same problems, because I don't think Lyndon Arthur is going to go on to be a multi-weight world champion. I think he's probably at his limit now.
No, that's the thing. It's a little bit of reflection on there, like you said, with Yarde's mindset. I mean, after the fight, he he just truly believed that Ian John Lewis's 117, 111 was spot on, and that basically he wasn't going to give. I mean, he said, fair play, bro, whatever to Lyndon, but he was of the mind that the 115, 140 were brown envelope gifts, basically, and that he'd just somehow, they want him to be champion, so that's it. So we're being, rather than you losing and I'm not having the ability, Yarde had the mentality that I'm being blocked. I'm not, for whatever reason, they don't want me to progress, rather than the fact that a one-handed man beat him. Let's just be fair about that. A one-handed man jabbed his head off and beat him. And that's, I can't believe I'm saying that myself, because Yarde is of the quality that he has and the natural ability he has. But a guy with one arm beat him by jabbing him and keeping him at bay and keeping the range and setting him off his pattern. That's for 12 rounds. And that's the basics.
If they carry on as they are, I think they've got to think, right, let's get the British title and defend it, and let's, out of this career, let's get a Lonsdale belt after 3 or 4 defences.
Yeah,
I think that's the limit. I think all these sort of talk of world championships and multi-belts and all this, I think it's not going to happen, because the ones at the top level, your Mexicans and your Americans, are not going to let him get away with not being able to defend a jab.
No, he's not going to. And he's talking about a rematch with Lyndon Arthur, and the only change of tactic would be to bull rush him first round, and like Tyson Fury Wilder 2, round 1 is round 13. So Yarde goes out in round 1 the way he took off at round 12, and just give himself 6 rounds and blast him, and he'll probably succeed at that. Obviously, if Arthur had a very healthy, fit right hand, you're going to get one back as well, so that'd be interesting. But that's the only way I could see him beating Arthur, because leading up to the fight, you're reading, well, what's their strengths and weaknesses. Arthur's got a quality jab. Yeah. So coming off that fight with Kovalev, you're like, I hope he realises that this is like a carbon copy of what he's already been through. So hopefully he's going to come out and be sort of tight or whatever else, and looking to slip the jab or bang and counter off it. And he just walked forward looking for the big shot and just basically block the jab with his face. You
text me to say that you'd put a bet on Lyndon Arthur. I text back to say he's got a good jab, and that Yarde, unless he's improved his defence against the jab, it's a good shout. And that's how it turned out. So
I want it.
I think they've got to. I think Tundi and Yarde have got to be. They've got to be a bit more sort of reflective. Look at the fight, and somebody in the camp again needs to be saying the truth. And at the minute,
the trouble is with Tundi, as you said, they're being a bit of a sort of cheerleader mode. I think that their psychology, and I said when Yarde was mid-round, sat himself on the stool and was saying lines in the camp to himself, they're of a mentality that they're already world champions and that they're already the best, and that the obstacles in the way is not the fact they're going to lose because somebody's outboxed them, it's because they're going to get a hard decision or a hard look, or they're going to get robbed, or that's what's going to stop the progress to world level, not the fact that they're getting outboxed.
Yeah,
which is kind of scary, and I don't know if Yarde's the sort of person that, in reflection, can step off from Tundi and say, "That's 2 fights now where guys with good jabs have beat me." But if he's standing there saying absolute robbery and basically you've got a brown envelope win, then that's just wrong.
Well, I've got amateur boxers that can stop the jab. Not with the face. They can stop the jab all day long. Better than Anthony Yarde, who is potentially going to be this world thing. So, for me, if I'm saying a statement like that I've got guys in the gym who are sort of novice amateurs with less than 5 fights who can stop a jab and defend a jab better than Anthony Yarde, there is something wrong.
Yeah, it is. We're in an amateur gym, and we're both going to be there tonight. Interestingly enough, obviously, it depends when this goes out. It'll be time lapse, but for the time of when we're recording this, it is a strange thing to sort of say that there's guys around us, there's guys that we train with, and whatever else, you know, you coach that have got a better defence than someone like that, and that's
and 100%. That's not bigging me up. That is 100%.
no. But that's the reality of what's happened. I think that it's not like we're sitting here as amateurs and potential sort of professional coaches and people that might go on to have professional careers that you're coaching. It's a reality of saying that there's the sort of boxing basic skills have been deferred in the exchange for excitement and front door tactics and go and knock them out. Well, that works with us 90% of guys that can't defend themselves or can't take a punch, and then he's met someone now that can take a punch and can defend himself and has got a jab, and he's lost again.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I want less lions in the camp and more basic defence. Yeah,
less cheerleading, more technical ability, because I'm not sitting here saying Anthony Yarde's not what he is. He's a fantastic fighter, but he's got all the potential. He's got all the tools in the box. Is a nice phrase that you use. He's got all the tools that he needs to be that champion, but he's missing one, isn't he?
Yeah, and we're not, you know what? We're not doing this in criticising Yarde, but
no.
I think
I want to see him to be a world champion. He's Britain. I'm British. You're British. I want to see that guy. I want to see Anthony Yarde, hands down, be a world champion. But he ain't going to do it as he is.
Yeah, it's kind of not that he's going to watch this and listen, because I don't think Tundi will let him watch it. But the reality is if he does what we've said in this video, his boxing and his career will be a lot better. And we haven't said anything rocket science here. We've said learn how to stop the jab with your hand, block the jab, and learn how to cut a ring off.
Yeah, he just kind of just follows his man around and was just happy to. He just seemed he was happy to wait. Perhaps that one thing he did learn from the Kovalev fight was Tundi was wrong in saying go out there and empty the tank. And the 8th round, where he said, and then obviously the last 4 rounds, he had nothing left, and a jab knocked him down or stopped him. He just had nothing left. So perhaps he was more cautious in the sense that he wasn't trying to cut the ring off, and he was just happy just to kind of follow his man. And the opportunity would eventually come for a big overhand right. But it didn't, because Arthur was wise to that and was always stepping backwards very slowly. He was always getting out of reach. And
you're losing round after round after round. The other guys sort of get in a healthy lead, and then you really are leaving it in the realms of we've got to do something now.
Well, yeah,
out the bag. Well, look at the times.
12, didn't it? It came to round 12 where he just realised that I've got to knock him out. I've got to stop him, and that was his. He just basically 11 rounds had just gone out the window, and here we are in round 12. You've got to go and stop this guy now, because He must have known. If he thought it was a robbery, if he thought he was that far ahead, then why go out and do what he did round 12? He knew he had to go out and stop him. If he thought he was so far ahead, and it was a robbery and all this other stuff, and he outboxed him under pressure and blah 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 blah. If that's true, then why did he go out and do what he did round 12? He just did the same again. Then just outbox him, because if you think you're beating him, then why round 12 go out there and put everything on him, because he knew he had to stop him.
Yeah.
So he knew he'd lost.
Yeah. So in summing up, absolutely no robbery for me.
Sorry, no robbery. Close. 115, 114 twice is spot on. Ian John Lewis, I don't know what he's on there, but that's what it is. But at least I think we've come away from that fight with the right person had his arms in the air.
Yeah, definitely. He's certainly, as the champion, Yarde didn't go in and take the belt from him.
No, he didn't. No chance. No.
Although Yarde thinks that he did, and Tundi's telling him he did as well, and probably several
mindset issues, isn't it?
Yeah. Probably several others in the camp all saying the same. There's and there is a point. What he needs a Mark Breland to sell him straight. But you know what happened to Mark Breland? He wasn't a yes man, and he got chucked out.
No. So, that's the trouble. Is you don't need yes men. He needs, like you said there, there's names you've mentioned, the Davidson, the Booths, Possibly McCracken, you know, I don't know, maybe that's someone, because the second fight with Joshua Ruiz, you saw a different model of fighter. You had someone that could do what Yarde was doing, can go forward and blast people out.
Yeah.
But when he tried that with Ruiz in their first fight, he got caught. So he stepped off, used his advantages, used his reach, had moments where he put the power on, but basically was happy to say, 12 rounds, you're not going to get near me. Your fist isn't going to land on my chin like it did in New York. And it worked, and he got his belts back. So, you know. Well,
we're going to have the rematch. And we'll see. If they change nothing, then Lyndon Arthur wins the rematch with his jab. And I think Yarde is all at sea then.
Yeah, the only way I could see Yarde beating Arthur in a rematch if nothing changes is that if he blows the tank for 6 rounds.
Yeah,
and he just round 1 is like round 12, and he just goes at him and just catches him, and that's it. But Arthur's wise to that.
Okay, well, we've gone through that there. It wasn't a video that I was thinking about doing, but I think we both felt the same as we text each other in between each round and during the rounds. It's just very frustrating to see such a talent potentially is just going to fall away. Just going to fall away, and it's not a massive thing to fix. You know, there's a couple of things to put right. I mean, Tundi could be the man to put this right, but first, to put something right, you've got to acknowledge that there's something wrong. And at the minute, I think that acknowledgement of the reality of the situation is not there. So we'll see. But thank you very much, Damien, for that. It's, as always, great to sort of chat through. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe to Fit to Box channel, and I shall speak to you soon.